Hello, and welcome everybody. I'm Ron, and thank you for joining us again for another episode of the Extreme Makeover Transformation Trader Edition, where where Ben and I are taking a new trader through the journey of basically starting from basically not having any knowledge of any Apex tools or any other systems, and taking him through the process of becoming a profitable trader and funding some evaluation accounts. So with that being said, let me bring Ben in here. There we go.
Hey,
Ben.
Ron.
Hey, Ben.
How's
are
it
you?
going?
It's going well.
I'm
Great. How are you?
fantastic. Doing good. Doing good.
How was your New Year?
It was good. It was good. Good time with the family and rest and relaxing. Kind of getting over a little cold today, so if I sniffle a little bit, I'll try to mute the mic. But doing great.
Okay. We're trying some new things. Like, as you can tell, there's a kind of like a new format on the video. We're trying some new stuff, seeing if it'll work a little bit better. So if people who are in the podcast with us live, if you could kind of just let us know. I know Ben's going to be manning the chat, what your thoughts are. And also, if you can hit the like button and subscribe to the channel, that would help the algorithm and get this pushed out to people who are not familiar with Apex, and hopefully they'll be able to join us as well. So with that being said, let's not waste any time and get Michelle in here and say hi to Michelle. Hi, Michelle. How are you?
Hello, good. Thank you. Yourself.
Morning, Michelle.
Morning.
How was your New Year's?
New Year's was good. Quiet with the kids, so just pleasant. Went walking and did outside stuff to get away from the computer.
Very good. Very good. So let's kind of recap where we left off, basically last year, right? Which it was only a week ago. Why don't you kind of fill us in on where we finished off with what we were supposed to be doing, with what you were supposed to be doing, and how we closed out the year.
Okay, so I finished the year on Sim. Well, I blew up the accounts, finished the year on Sim. I over the holidays, I sat and just rewatched some of the videos. I reset my charts up, and just took some time to see if I actually understood what was going on by trading the sim and everything.
Okay, great. And when we last spoke, what were you supposed to do? Because we kind of came to a little bit of a consensus with the market that you were trading, and what was your thought process about? Why don't you kind of tell us what is it that you're trading, and before what you were trading actually last year, and where we are now.
So I was trading the ES just because that's all I knew. But I was trying to follow along in the ER room, and that wasn't working because nobody calls out trades in the ER room for ES. So after speaking to Ron, we changed everything, and I now trade the YM and the RTY, so I can follow when Ron and Laurie call out the setups and that, because I wasn't able to follow, and at the moment, obviously need help because I'm not passing the eval account. So I changed over, and I now have YM and RTY as my trading platform.
Okay, so let's go back for a second, just because something happened yesterday, which kind of was interesting, to say the least, because when we last spoke at the end of the year, you were going to be basically switching over everything to RTY and YM, and basically get rid of all the ES charts. And yesterday you had posted a link on your trades that you had taken some trades and you ended up, slightly profitable for the day. And when you had posted the screenshot, what was my reaction when I saw that? Because you were looking for some feedback on it.
Yeah. Well, the reaction was, what is that chart? It's not even a sniper chart. It's not the plan that we had discussed to go to YM and RTY.
Right. So when I saw that initially, I was like, okay. So I wasn't really quite sure what we were looking at. And then I sent you a message and I said, kind of, Michelle, what is it that you just posted? And I need to kind of get some clarification so we can kind of walk through it. So we ended up walking through it yesterday, and we went through it trade by trade. And let's focus on this guy right here. So let's forget about the fact for a second that this is an ES chart, which I was surprised that you were actually trading ES, because I thought we were going to go to RTY and YM. But again, it's your choice. You can do whatever you want. But when I asked you why did you switch back or stick or never make the change to ES, what did you tell me? What was your... Do you remember? Right. So when you said that you didn't see RTY or YM, we talked about your base and your foundation. Go ahead. Yes, I can hear you. Yep, I did. Did I lose you? Can you hear me? Okay. Okay. Ben, can you still hear me?
So it seems that there's no audio for Michelle.
That's what they're saying. There's no audio for her?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I don't know if it's because it's switched to that screen where it's just us two.
Well, let's try that. What about if Michelle speaks now?
Can you hear me now if I speak? So I can repeat what I was saying if you can hear me now.
Yes, they can hear now.
Okay, so basically I can't show that chart for some reason, and Michelle speaks. So anyway, I think people saw it, so we'll kind of go back to the conversation that we had.
Okay. So what I was saying was I changed the plan because yesterday when RTY and YM opened, it was all jumping all over the place, and I was like, oh, I don't understand this. I don't know how the market moves. And it was the first day I was looking at it. But the reason why I went to RTY and YM was that so that I could follow the trades in the ER room with Laurie and Ron calling them out, because I'm not able to do it, on my own with the ES. But then because I couldn't understand what was going on in RTY and YM, I went back to the ES and I thought I'd strip the chart down and take everything off and post this blank chart with blank entries. And obviously Ron was like, what chart is this? We don't know why you've got in, why you've got out. Why are you trading ES after we had spoken and said trade YM and RTY? And he was like, but where's the setup? What setup have you taken? And I think I tried to convince myself there was the setups. And that's where we are today.
Right. So the important message here is, and this is what a lot of new traders do, is they get to a plan and they semi feel sort of comfortable with something, and then they immediately change it if things don't go 100% the way that they want. So you don't give the process enough time to develop, and you don't focus enough on the process.
And
And
that was exactly it. I gave it 5 minutes of the morning and went, oh, I don't understand it. I'm going back to what I understand.
So I've been in the same boat as probably everyone here, changing charts and adding things. And what I found is when I first started, a lot of insecurities because I didn't know much. So constantly changing charts and adding things, and then, oh, this doesn't work, or this is too complicated, let's simplify it. And all those changes that deviate from what we know works are just masking your with with either your knowledge of the sniper system, your insecurities with your confidence in yourself. I mean, it's a whole range of things. It's not one thing. It could be 10 things. But so that's what I found for me is my insecurities and my lack of knowledge just led me down this rabbit hole of constantly, let's change this, let's add this, let's change, oh, this worked, oh, this is not working, let's change this. And so then you just go through this vicious cycle of constantly changing stuff. And so that's why I'm talking to Michelle today and kind of just reiterating the fact like this works, the charts that we sent you work, and to just stick with them and learn them and go from there and not go down that cycle of constantly changing stuff or looking for the latest and greatest or the new shiny thing. Just put them on, like leave the chart, like the sniper templates work, and that's where we want to go, is just looking at the charts, learning them, and then working through those insecurities and trusting the chart and trusting the system for what it is, because it's a tried and true system. So that's where we're at, and we've all been there to some form or another. We've all done the things that you have done, Michelle. So it's not, we're not singling you out, kind of singling you out, but we've all been there. This is all part of a growing process, growing pains for it. So
Yeah, exactly. And it's a great point, Ben, and I've been through it as well. And it's not easy to have somebody come in and just basically like strip everything that you do and follow what they say. I mean, because who knows? I mean, are we the right people to do that? Well, yeah. I mean, to this level, yeah. We've got enough of a foundation-based build that we know that this works. Now, what happens more advanced stuff? Yeah, there's some advanced stuff. I mean, again, and then if you look at what Lori knows or what Daryl knows, I mean, it takes time to get to that level, and that all comes with experience. But right now, Michelle, you're going through the process where, this is the midway point that we need to get you to, and there's some specific rules that we need to follow, which both Ben and myself have done, and we do this to each other every single day, where we hold each other accountable. So going back to the chart that you had posted, one of the things that, and I'm just going to show it for a second while I talk about it, and then I'm going to have you speak just so people, because I know some people came in and maybe didn't see it. But
I posted a screenshot, a link in the chat, so if people want to pull it up. But
okay, great. So we'll just leave it at that. The trade that you took basically had a setup that was not as strong, but it was a setup that you did what with it?
So which one are you talking about, Ron?
The
Trade
the
one or
the
two?
trade two. Trade two.
Trade two. So what happened was I saw the setup, but the setup was there, and then but it was only a setup, and it went one. And then it turned. So it went one bar up and it turned and it went down. So when it came back up again and it got, because didn't get to the take profit, I thought I could get back in because it was still the setup bar. It didn't go to the stop loss and it didn't go to the take profit. So I got back in again at the get in where you would get in at the close of the bar to go long.
But it was 2 bars after the original setup bar, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So what do the rules state with basically a setup and you get into a trade? What happens to that?
You get in on the first bar and it's 1-2 is the take profit, you're out, and you get in on a reversal bar.
Right. So once we get in and we're in the trade, one of two things are going to happen. It's either going to take profit
Mm-hmm.
or it's going to get stopped out.
Mm-hmm.
Those are the two options that we have. Now, there's a lot of people out there that will either move their stop because they think or feel that the market is just going to give a little bit more breathing room to them, or what have you. So they'll
Mm-hmm.
move their stop, and now they just increase their risk with the same profit target still staying in place. Okay, that's one thing. So we know that breaks one rule right there. The other one is you get stopped out, and you basically got right back in it,
Mm-hmm.
but it wasn't a setup bar. There was nothing there.
No,
So,
I got in on the setup bar from 3
bars ago.
bars back.
Yep,
Yeah.
3 bars ago. So,
Mm.
and Ben, if you want to kind of elaborate on what the rules are on that. We lost Ben's audio, I think.
Sorry, I muted my mic. I was
There we go.
coughing. On on very rare occasions, you would reverse. If you take a trade and it loses, would you reverse? Very rare occasions. It almost doesn't happen very much. But once you're in a trade, like Ron said, there's only two options. You're either going to win the trade or you're going to
Mm.
lose the trade. And what can happen if you get into a tendency of moving your stop or flipping direction. Now remember, we're taking a trade, we're taking a reversal based on what we're seeing on the charts that's signaling reversal. So if we don't give it a chance to do what it's going to do, and then we reverse. So everything is saying short, right? Or on that example, everything was saying short. You go short, it loses, it retraces, and then you get in, go in the other direction, or you get in again. That very quickly. So instead of say taking a $200 loss, that can turn into a $400 loss. That can turn into a $600 loss. And in the span of a minute, 2-3 minutes, you can beat your max loss just by fumbling around and not following the rules. Now, if the trade loses, next trade, go to the next one, and the next one has statistically a probability of around 70 to 75%, depending on a multitude of factors, that the next one is going to win. But if you get into the habit of trying to make that trade work after the fact, then it's so easy to spiral, and it happens. I've done it a few times where it's just 2 minutes later you're like, what happened? Like, I should have trusted the trade. So when you see the setup, you take it. It doesn't work out. Just take that as a learning experience, or maybe it was a great setup and it lost, anyway. Then, regardless, either way, you just go to the next setup and wait instead of trying to make that trade quote unquote work, or I need to be right on this trade. And that's another thing for psychology. You're not going to be right. Like if you need to be right 100% of the time, trading is like not the profession, because no one, regardless of how great you are or good at reading the charts, no one has 100% win rate. No one. I mean, so I would say that, when you get into a trade, it's either going to win or lose. Take it for what it is. If there's a lesson to be learned on why you shouldn't take the trade, write it down, make a mental note, take the lesson for what it is, and then go to the next trade.
Yeah. And
Mhm.
and with that, to just basically piggyback to that, that very same trade that we're talking about that you ended up taking actually ran, okay? And it was profitable. And you said,
Mhm.
yeah, but it won. I mean, look, I was in the green. I mean, this is great. The problem is, and Ben can attest to this, is that you are just creating yourself basically a black hole that you're never going to be able to get yourself out of by building bad habits and getting false results on something that you should have never done in the first place.
Mhm.
So your reward for doing that yesterday was what? Remember, we talked about this very specific, and it was, and this is going to be hard for people to hear, but it's, and by the way, just so everybody understands, Michelle has agreed to be coached and mentored by both Ben and myself, and to take everything that gets thrown her way, good, bad, and ugly. And if somebody wants to be successful or profitable, you have to be able to have the best way to put it is to have the mirror put in front of your face and say, this is reality. Okay, now you have two choices. You can either look at that mirror and go, okay, I'm going to accept it and do what needs to be done. Or just like Ben said, it's like, I'm not going to accept this, and then trading is just, it's not for me. It's not for you, right? Because we're all professional. I mean, we strive to be professional traders. And it's kind of one of the things I've said in the ER many times. When you wake up in the morning and you look in the mirror, you should be asking yourself the question, am I going to hire myself today, or am I going to fire myself today? And if you're going to hire yourself, what are you going to do? I'm going to follow my rules. Well, what are my rules? And then you've got your list of rules in front of you. And if you're going to fire yourself today, here's the rules, break one of them. Okay? So that's kind of like the idea behind it. So when you broke the rule yesterday, your reward for that was?
Well, first I apologize to Ron for all my mistakes. And like Ron said, Michelle, you don't need to apologize to me. I need to go apologize, to my husband, to myself, to my family, because I'm the one who messed up. And I want this for us, not, like Ron said, he's happy, and Ben, they're mentoring me. They're happy to help me, but it's down to me to do it and follow the rules. There was no reward. I did sit here afterwards and go back over the trade and thinking, like, what did I do? There was no setup. The trade before and the last trade, the fourth trade, was completely wrong. But yeah, I was frustrated, in that I thought it was good and all a good setup and everything. And when I stopped and looked at it, I think I was too much of a rush again, you know. Um, but I needed to mark up the correct charts. I need to trade off the correct charts. I need to stop changing, and give the system a chance from, I keep changing from RTY to YM to ES because I don't have the confidence. And I just need to follow the system, follow the rules.
And that's the takeaway from this, and that's the
Mm.
lesson is bouncing around from market to market or from setup to setup or from chart to chart or from different things, if you don't have a very good solid base foundation, then you have nothing to build on. And that's one of the things that you and I were working on, is to get your foundation built. The problem is that you went and ripped it apart right after we were making some progress, right? Now, fortunately, and this is the good thing about this, is that we are basically doing literally like this almost accountability and update check with you on a very regular basis, where we're basically streaming this to like everybody to see, right? You're putting yourself out there, which is great, and my hat's off to you, and it's very commendable, and it's great. That is the biggest level of accountability that you can hold for yourself. And with that, so when we saw that there was something that had to basically, we had to rein you back in and say, okay, wait a minute, Michelle, this we're kind of going off the beaten path again of where you were before. Not that it's easy for you, because I understand this is not an easy thing to do when you're used to doing things a certain way, and that's what happens when you come in with all this previous experience, knowledge, whatever it is, and we talk about literally dumping it all out and starting from scratch. This is what happens when you not fail, because I mean, we're human beings, right? But we mess up and we make mistakes, and if you don't have somebody that's going to point that out to you, you'll just go right back to it, and then you'll just do whatever it is you need to do on a daily basis, and then you'll find yourself waking up a month or two later going, this is just not working for me, right? But the problem is that you never focused on building your solid foundation like you were supposed to in the very beginning, and you made the change that you weren't supposed to make. So after you had your reflection moment of, what had happened with what, you had done to basically to yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
What was literally the next thing that you did when you and I were talking? What was the next thing that you switched over to?
I went and changed the charts to YM and RTY so that I could actually follow the trades that everyone's talking about, because I'm obviously taking trades that I think are correct and they're not. And either I'm not seeing it or I'm rushing. All the setup falls away at the last minute and I'm too slow. But no, so I've changed now to YM and RTY today.
And since you did that, you actually sent me a Skype this morning, and you said, what do I think about this trade? Now, before you tell me about that, when we talked about the RTY and the YM markets that you're going to be trading, we had talked about a very, very, very specific setup that you were not going to deviate from, right? So why don't you kind of go over that, because that now becomes your template, and you told me that you're not going to do anything unless this happens. So what is this?
Okay, so this you can't see it on this piece of paper, but this is my setup. And my setup is the LOREX. It has to have a TX on the 10-minute, a TX on the 30, has to have a cluster on the wick with either a mini magnet pour, absorption X, or OPR. And unless I see that, I do not take the trade. I did see that trade this morning at 7:51:22. And I took that trade in sim. Today my accounts actually went live, but I'm not trading the live accounts just because I don't have the confidence to put my money against it, and I'm not prepared to blow these accounts up. I have a 12-month plan, and as Daryl says in the video, it's not a 12-week plan or a 12-day plan. I have a 12-month plan, and if it takes me a month to get through the eval, then it takes me a month. It's going to cost me more to reset them. So I took that trade this morning in sim, and it was profitable. I sent it to Ron and told him. But I will say, I have felt so frustrated today sitting and watching the market and have taken no trade. And I know this is such a learning thing that I have to learn. But I've sat here just watching YM and RTY, and I either was too slow on the one setup that's set up, or the setup hasn't been there. And I have just sat here thinking, I should have taken that trade. I should have taken that trade. I could have taken that trade. They weren't proper setups, but that is something that's I'm going to have to overcome.
And Michelle, I'm sorry, what time was that trade
Mm.
again?
The trade I took this morning was 7:51:22.
So it would be 8:51:22, right?
Sorry, yeah.
Okay. So here is the market right before that setup. Ben, I can't. I'm going to have you walk it through because I can't see it because I'm looking at something else. So
That's a bar or a couple bars back before the setup. And we're on Y.
this
Are
is
we on
YM.
YM right now?
Yep.
Yep, we're on YM. Okay.
So here's the setup bar.
So on that setup bar, it's got an exhaustion, it's got a cluster on the wick, it's got a TX on the 30. It's actually an OD trade also. And you got room to profit before that. It's probably going to come down. If I had to guess, I don't remember this trade exactly, but I would say it's going to come down and touch that mini magnet on the 30, or that green line, the green ice level would be a good target also. But there's enough room in there to target on the 10 ticks. I don't remember this trade exactly, so
Yeah, you and I, we actually, Brent, you and I haven't seen this. We haven't talked about it. This all happened pre-market. So.
Well, that's why I don't remember.
So there you go.
Makes me feel better.
Yeah, so there you go. So you're actually looking at it for the first time, which is great. That's why I'm going to have you walk through it because I've already seen it. So.
Yeah, so the entry would have been right at the bar close on that first reversal bar, and then no retrace. I mean, a little bit of retracement on that second bar, but went down.
I'm going to go back. Sorry, Ben. I'm going to go back.
Ticks.
I'm going to go back for 1 second because Michelle, when you saw this, what were you? I want to know, what was your thought process? What were you thinking? What was going through your mind at that moment?
Well, I was confident in that I knew the setup. I wasn't taking anything else. It had to have a Lorex. It had to have my TX. It had to have a cluster. It had to have a TX on the 30. It had to have a mini magnet and a pore absorption X OPR. So for me, it felt like a no-brainer. It was the exact setup. I didn't have to think about it. I wasn't questioning myself. Is this correct? Is it not? So I just hit the sell close. It wasn't something that I had to think twice or three times.
Now,
so I was confident this time round.
As this trade was developing, because you were in it for quite a few minutes, which is, again, that's normal for pre-market.
Mm-hmm.
What do you remember? What your mindset was? What your emotions were? And this is important because when you're confident in your setup, it changes everything with the way that you think, feel, approach a trade, approach the next trade when the next one comes.
At that time, to be honest, I was thinking the kids are at school. It's quiet. I can focus. There was no distractions. And then I realized it doesn't matter what I'm trading, what letters, RTY, YM, ES. Because if my setup is the same, that's all I'm looking for. I don't have to overanalyze it. I'm not having to really think about, right, it's at this level, at this price, at this. All I'm looking for is that setup, and it was an easy trade. So I felt fine. I felt happy. I bought it. I sell to close, and I didn't touch it. I didn't touch the take profit. I didn't touch the stop loss. I just left it. And I was like, well, if that fails, it was a good trade, and that's not on me.
Right. And you have your ATM set up how?
Yep. The ATM is the standard ATM 1921
Perfect.
sniper.
Perfect. And you're not changing or moving anything, and it's, it's funny, you and I had an exercise, for those of you out there who just, get edgy and antsy and, don't know what to do when you get into a trade. It's like, get into the trade, get up, and then just walk away, 10, 15 feet away and just watch from afar, right? And then just let things happen, and then everything will literally work out 75 to 80% of the time. And
we can say that 75 to 80% of the time because we've back tested hundreds of these setups, and we've forward tested probably hundreds of these setups. And so like we know the stats and the stats are transferable to each market, give or take, a 5 to 10% swing, between ES, RTY, NQ, and YM. So we know that we have the probabilities on our side. We know we have the back tests on our side. We know we've looked at a lot of these trades, and we know that they work. And so when you see the setups and they're correct and your entries are correct, then that should give you confidence to just sit there in the trade. Now it's hard, especially if you're sitting in there for a few minutes because you're watching. I remember trading at night one time. I was trading ES, and I was in a trade for like 3 hours when I first started, like first started, and I watched every tick of that ES trade for 3 hours. When I first started, it was so ridiculous, and that was way before the Lorex. But once you know the statistics and the probabilities are on your side, and it's a valid setup, then that gives you confidence to just kind of sit there and take the next trade, or take that trade, let it run, and then if it loses, you're more okay. Obviously, losing a trade, it always sucks, but if you take a valid setup and it loses, you're mentally more able to move on, to detach yourself from that loss and move on to the next trade. Now, if you take an invalid trade and then you go out of control, or even if you don't go out of control, say you take an invalid trade and then you're like beating yourself up, and then you're in the back of your mind, you're still beating yourself up for taking an invalid trade, or why did I take that trade? And then you fill yourself with doubt. Then the next trade comes up. It could be an even better setup off of a better level. And then you're like, well, and then the trade happens. It wins. You didn't take it because you hesitated, because you're doubting yourself from a previous trade, or whatever, a couple other reasons. And so when you have the statistics on your side, it's easier to just let the trade ride, and then even if it loses, to move on to the next trade. So that's why following these rules are so important. It's not just 3 and done, or your profit target, or your max loss, or all the rules that we have set in place. They're there to keep the ball rolling in a consistent manner, because that's key, right? Because like I tell my son who trades, all that matters at the end of the week or the end of the month is the equity curve. And so you're going to have down days, you're going to have red days, and you're going to have some green days, really good, green days. But as long as you can just stay consistent and keep that process rolling, that's what's important. And that's why the rules are so important. So.
Yeah, and with that, just to kind of, add to that, one of the things that we always have to remember, and this goes for all of us who have been there, and the ones who are still going through it now with the FOMO, or fear of missing out, if you can just think of one thing and just realize that the market is not stopping, okay? The market is going to continue with or without you. The setups are going to come and go with or without you, no matter what happens. So always know that there's always another setup, And you don't have to worry about if you missed this one, there's going to be another one. And this another one could be better than the one that you just missed. So there's always a new train coming, and you can always jump on the bandwagon. And with this particular trade that Michelle took, we got out right here. This is where your take profit is, right? It didn't even retrace. It kept going. And it ran for a little bit before this guy showed up, but still, this is pretty good, right? And if you remember what Ben's target was calling before he's even seen this thing was here. That gave us 17 ticks, 18 ticks. So if we would have had a runner, it probably would have got stopped out right around here maybe, somewhere around here. So we could have maybe gotten 20 ticks out of this trade on the runner and 10 ticks on the scalp. That's 30 ticks total.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So after that, Michelle, once the trade was over and you were out of it, what was your mindset?
I was happy that I followed the rules. I followed the setup. I knew exactly what the setup was. I know what my setup is now, and those are the trades I'm only going to take. But I will say there have been some setups today similar, but didn't have all the everything on my checklist, so I didn't take them, and they ended up going for quite a few points. And other than taking that one trade today, I've taken nothing else, and I have felt frustrated just sitting here. And I know that's a personal thing I have to get through, and I know it's something that I just have to grow from. But like, I've just sat here thinking, I'm so frustrated. I haven't taken a trade. I'm just sitting here. I'm learning. I will say I'm learning, but I think that's just something for me to grow, I guess, as a person. I'm not in a rush. It's a 12-month plan. So I just have to keep reminding myself that I want to pass these evals, and have these PA accounts. So I don't know. I just got to get through that.
So let's focus on that, Ben. Let's you and I have a discussion about that for a second. And what I want to talk about is the psychology that a trader goes through that is not used to sitting and waiting and not taking a trade. Because I can completely appreciate where Michelle is coming from. And I can totally put myself in her shoes.
For sure.
And I was there, and I was Mr. Antsy Pants, and I always had to be pushing buttons, and I always felt like I had to be in a trade. And if I wasn't, then I was looking for something. And then when I was looking, I was creating something that wasn't there. Which, in reference, Michelle, if she's not focused on what she's doing right now, will immediately go back to that chart that we showed where she fabricated a trade that wasn't there, but because she had to be in one, she took it. Now, it did work out in her favor, but it was breaking every single rule that we know. What would have happened if that trade would have lost?
If the trade she made up lost?
Correct.
She probably would have spiraled. That's a possibility. Probably would have went back to the drawing board. Probably would have added a few more indicators. I mean, like there's it, and I can speak from experience. I mean, I've created a number of setups. Yeah, a number of setups, and they don't work long term. And so, what happens is you build these bad habits on top of bad habits, and then every trade basically every trade has a 50% chance of winning or losing. I mean, if you have a 1-to-1 risk reward, it's a 50% chance, right? And so 50% of the time, your bad habits or wrong decisions are going to be rewarded, and so then that just adds to the problem. You're like, well, this worked. Well, why did this work? Well, I don't know. It worked though. Let's try it again. Oh, it didn't work. Oh, it didn't work again. Well, it worked 2 trades ago. Let's keep going. And then, yeah. And so it's a whole spiral. And that's why, and then I think that's a little bit of what Michelle has done. And we touched on it earlier about maybe some insecurities in what's going on, some insecurities in the system, a lack of knowledge. And she doesn't, uh, she's brand new, right? And doesn't know the statistics and everything that Ron and I do. And the only reason we know that is because we've been around a long time and we've put in the work to justify all of the rules and the systems that we have in place. And all of those rules and systems are what Daryl and Lori put out with the sniper system. And we've made just a few little small modifications, but they're 98% sniper rules.
And the modification, and the modifications, sorry, Ben, to jump in, the modifications are designed to tailor the trader, right? Because we're all human beings and we all have to modify things to fit our style and who we are as individuals. But the core, that doesn't change. That's always been there. In fact, I actually took Lori's original, rules that is basically being talked about in the room on a daily basis, and I literally tightened the belt so tight that there's only this much going through it, right? I mean, it's not much. And I'm okay with it because I wanted to take as little of trades as possible in a day. I was okay with taking 1 to no trades a day, as long as I knew that I was highly probable that I will be profitable.
Yeah, I used to think that I could grind the market. I, I was for a while I was convinced I was a lane 2 trader, and looking back I wasn't even a lane 2 trader. I was a lane 0, 1, and then 2 if I was lucky, and I would just grind the market. And a vast majority of the time grinding the market just doesn't work. So that's why the strict adherence to the rules is paramount to be successful long term. If you don't follow the rules, or if you deviate from them, even occasionally, those occasional deviation from the rules can be catastrophic to your account, because it might be you hit your max loss. Well, let's take one more trade. Even though I'm at my max loss, I got to make it up. Okay, now I'm really red. Well, I can't end the day really red, because what does that say about me personally? That means I failed today, or whatever the psychology is behind. So then you take another trade, and then you're like, oh man, I'm so far down. This is not good. And then you're like, well, whatever. Just blow the account. I'm so close to the threshold, just blow the account. And so that's why the rules are there to keep. It's kind of like like a bowling analogy. You got for little kids. I got 4 boys, and taking a bowling and put the bumpers on the lanes. That's what the rules are there for. So without the bumpers, they're gonna end up in the whatever the thing is.
The gutter.
The gutter. Yeah, they're gonna end up in the gutter, and that's where you'll end up if you don't have the rules in place. You'll just end up in the gutter, sometimes literally or figuratively. So that's why the rules are. I mean, they're just so important, and I know I'm just beating the drum here on the rules, but without them, we're just flying blind. I mean, you'll find success maybe one day, maybe 2 days in a row, but consistent. You won't find consistent long-term success without the rules.
Yeah, I totally agree. Ben, really quickly, is there any, because I don't have any access to I can't see the chat. I'm curious if anybody in the chat has any questions for either you, Michelle, or myself that we can answer. And I know we didn't really do this last time, but in case some come up from people, that would be great. And
have not seen any, but
okay. And while we're doing that, I'll just kind of remind people again to come and join myself as I accompany Lori and Daryl, who's actually been pretty active the last few sessions. He's been in there with us, which has been kind of nice.
For sure.
To be part of the community, and you can go to apexinvesting.com and then sign up for the free trial, where you get access to the room and all the Apex tools and everything that we talk about in the room for 30 days for free. You get access to the training, and the live elite room. You get access to all that stuff for free, which is, I think, amazing and great. Also, for those new people that just joined late or what have you, if you can just hit the like button on the video, that would be great. Hopefully, you're getting some value out of this content, and comment down below if you want to see any more of these types of podcasts. Where we are going to continue with Michelle and take her along the journey, and I promise not to give up on her until she actually gets her first funding check from her funded account. And if it takes a month, 2, 3, 6 months, whatever it is, we're going to do that, and we're going to attempt to do that without a single reset. So,
but just also to say, Ron, I don't think anybody knows the plan, and my plan is a 12-month plan, and that's every day I got to keep reminding myself it's a 12-month plan. Daryl Martin has set the 12-month plan. It's not a 12-week plan or a 12-day plan. I'm doing the 12-month plan. So there's no reason why I need to try and make $200 into $1 million in one day. And I think today I must be learning, because I know I was frustrated not taking a trade. And the only trade I did take was in sim, which made me more frustrated. But the fact that I know it's a 12-month plan and I'm not resetting any more accounts is that I have the time, and I don't need to do this in day one. I don't need to get through these eval accounts in day one. I need to get this right. I need to understand, because I have a 12-month plan. So
right, which is great. And to add to that, one of the things that is important is that you need to be willing to put the work in. And you said that you were frustrated because you were in sim. Well, that's one of the things that, if I may suggest, you need to work on, is not being frustrated because you are in sim, because part of your plan is to go through a process where you're executing 25 trades mistake-free in sim before you go actually live. Why? Because you want to make sure that you earn the right, and this is really key, you want to earn the right to trade real money. And that's really, really important. I've talked about this in the ER many, many times. Just because you went and got an evaluation account, you need to treat it like it's real money. And you have to earn the right to trade into that account to earn money. And the way you do that is you go through that process. And then if you can do back testing, that'll be great. You can work off of, back testing that Ben and I have done. We can go through all those things. But I'm trying to give you as much information and as many tools as I can. And Ben has put together a whole bunch of stuff as well. But then you need to take that, and then you have to actually put in the work. And the work is, you work on your psychology, you work on staying on track, you work on not changing a market when things don't go exactly the way that you want. It's okay to be frustrated. It's also okay to walk away from the computer. It's okay to not take a trade. All those negative things are okay, because when things are going great, everybody's doing fine and dandy. I mean, there's no problem when everybody's executing a trade and it wins, and then the next one wins, and the next one wins. Nobody has a problem with that. The problem comes when you take a loser. And even just one out of 10, winners in a row, that one can affect you, which is why I always say, don't get overly excited when the trade wins, and don't get overly down, depressed, bummed out, whatever it is, when the trade loses. And it's actually kind of one of the things that I've talked to Ben about when his son has taken, a couple of hits a couple of days in a row. And I said, how's he doing? How's his psyche? Where's he at? And then on the one hand, I was saying it's actually really good that he took some losers back to back because he needs to experience it. And the sooner he experiences it, and the sooner he knows how to deal with it, the better he's going to be in the long run because he's going to have something to always fall back on and go, oh yeah, I was there and this is how I dealt with it.
Yeah, I know for my son, like you're talking about having those losing days where I was actually happy he had losing days. Like obviously it was like, oh, that sucks you had a losing day. But I was really glad he had a losing day because he was like he had like 8 days in a row where he was just like killing it. I'm like, oh, I was getting a little nervous for him because I was like, I don't want him to win all the time because he needs to experience the loss. Because only by experiencing the loss can you handle the loss. And now, Michelle, I look at today. So you said you were sitting there and you were frustrated about sitting there and sim and not taking a trade. I look at it 180 degrees different. You went from where you were a short time ago, from where that chart was that you that you sit on, right? You send this chart where literally you couldn't read anything on that chart, right? I mean, I couldn't make heads or tails of it. You get the right chart. You're sitting there in sim. You're patient. It's pre-market, and you take a beautiful trade. It has all your conditions, all the conditions you wrote down. It's it's an ODD. It's a Lorex. Has all the conditions. There's room to profit, and the trade was profitable. And even if the trade wasn't profitable, even if it lost, it still met all your conditions, and it was a fantastic trade. So in a very short amount of time, you've made a lot of progress. Now it's building upon that success. So your trade plan, if you get one winner, are you done for the day?
Three or 150. I'm not trailing anything yet. When I get in, I leave the ATM. So I'm not trying to, trail it for more or not. So it would be net 3, 150 done. Hmm.
And filter out all the other trades that don't meet your conditions
Hmm.
and not take those trades. That's success too. So like my son, he trades on NQ. There are a ton of Lorexes on NQ, and he usually trades about a half hour to 45 minutes. And he'll probably see like, I don't know, 30 Lorexes. So he is constantly filtering them based on the conditions that I've given him. And he does a fantastic job. That's part of the process too, is filtering those trades. And if he only gets one trade and it's a winner and he's able to filter out 30 trades, 20 trades, 40 trades that don't meet his conditions, that's a lot of success also. Because he could very easily just, oh, it's a Lorex, take it. That's a Lorex, take it. That's a Lorex. He could easily just take a lot of Lorexes. And actually, a lot of them would win. On NQ, it's about give or take 70% of those trades are going to win. So he could take a lot more trades, and he would have a lot more winners, but then he would also have a lot more losers than what he has. But if he's able to sit there during a whole trade session and just take 1 to 3 trades and then filter out all of those other trades, that is such good experience for him because RTY and NQ move a little differently than ES, And through a lot of time and exposure through ES, you kind of get the quirks of ES. Through a lot of time of exposure, you kind of get the quirks of RTY, YM, and NQ. So I look at it like you took a great trade and you're able to sit there and not get impatient and take a trade that didn't meet your conditions. Now, if you would have taken a great trade, got impatient, and then you send Ron or I another screenshot and you're like, hey, look at this. Look at this. Start of the day, fantastic. You spend an hour or two really just focusing, and then you ended the day taking a trade that didn't meet all your conditions. You would be filled with regret because you're like, I did so good, and then because I was impatient, I took a trade. Net loss for you if you did that. But today should be a net win for you because you took a good trade, you kept your patience, you filtered out all the other trades you didn't like, and you ended green. Look at today.
Now that you say it like that, you know, it does change my whole mindset. You know, would I have been happy? Like, I've never traded YM or RTY. Would I have been happy with my $45? Yeah, because I actually was able to see the trade, you know, as opposed to making up what I think was trades and rewarding myself by going, oh, but it was profitable, Ron. And he was like, but Michelle, it's totally wrong. Yeah, you were profitable, but you've rewarded yourself with something that's totally wrong. So now that you say it like that, yeah, I'm happy that I've sat here and gone, not a good trade, not a good trade, not a good trade. I'm bored, not a good trade. Okay, well, I took one trade. It was a good trade. Do you know what? That's one step to not blowing up my account.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I would definitely look at today as a total net win, right? The first day of of really being in YM and RTY, and taking the success from today and just taking a few little lessons learned, and then taking that to the day 2, and then taking a few little lessons from that, and then going to day 3. Because like you said, it's a 12-month plan, right? It's not a 12-minute plan. So just building upon these little successes is key. So Ron, Vladimir was saying when you switch to the, like when we see all three of us,
Yes.
all three of the audio works. And then when you switch to one person, only the person on the screen can be heard. So It's kind of a little different.
Okay, so it's
just
a
little side note. So
okay, so if that's the case, then what I'll do is I'll keep the screen on the 3, and we'll just leave it like that. So
but thank you. I really appreciate the time and the mentoring, because what you just said now in that speech has really made me stop for a second and think, do you know what? Like, I'm looking at the charts, obviously it's here in front of me, and I'm like, well, that's not a good trade. That's not a good trade. That was my perfect setup, you know? And yes, that's made, I don't know, 50 points, but that wasn't my setup, you know? So it's made me actually rethink. And I know somebody asked, what's my maximum loss for the day? I don't know. For me, it wouldn't be a figure. It would be a trade, if that made sense. You know, I think if I made one bad trade, I would not if it was a bad trade. No, if the setup, if my conditions were all met and the trade didn't work, that's not my fault. I think I would wait for my next condition and I would take the second trade.
And what happens
Am I right or wrong?
and what happens if that next trade loses?
2, I'm done.
So 2 in a row and you're done.
2 in a row, I'm done.
Right.
Yeah, two full losses, you're done.
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's the rules that I have in place for my son. If he takes 2 full losses, now he has his ATM, he breaks even on some of the trades. But if he takes 2 full losses, he's done.
Okay.
Because 3 full losses, that's like $600
That's 600.
as opposed to $400. And so like
Mm.
it's like a psychological level, I think, for a lot of traders. Like 400, that's not bad. It still sucks. 600, you're kind of getting into that desperation mode, right? And so it really messes with you.
A lot of it also is very relative to your account size.
Exactly.
Okay, because what happens is as your account's going to grow, and you'll see this, later on down the road, you're going to start scaling your contracts. You're not going to be staying at trading just one contract. So when Ben, made the comment that it's a $200 loss per trade, it's actually, for one contract. You're trading 2 contracts. Now you're at $450 per trade for losing for 2 contracts, right? And so on and so forth. So a lot of it also, it's all relative to your account size and what your risk tolerance is, and we'll talk more about that. As time goes on, we'll talk about mental capital and where you need to be mentally, and when you're spent mentally, that you need to just get up and walk away. So another thing too is if you find yourself that you're bored, walk away. Don't trade. Don't trade. Take whatever you got for the day, 1 win, 1 loss, no trade, whatever it is, and just walk away. You're done for the day. It's okay. Come back tomorrow. Tomorrow's another day. There's no need to force a situation that you're going to later on live to regret, because it could especially if you know within yourself that you're not able to withstand, the couple of losses or a loss, because you're going to get into a negative spiral, then walk away. And the same thing when, if a win, if you get on a streak and you've got 3 wins in a row, okay, walk away. I don't care if it took 10 minutes and you just got a back-to-back-to-back, or if you had a YM and an RTY back-to-back and then another YM came up. If all that happened within the course of 10 minutes, you're done. It's like, well, don't sit there for the rest of the day and look for something to say, hey, you know what, I can really make a killing today. No. That's not what it's all about.
So mine then will be 2 full losses and 3 full wins rule.
Yep, and then I would add one thing onto that, and it's the same thing for my son, and it's the same thing for me. If I take a trade that is invalid, and I look back and I miss something, and I look back on the trade and it's invalid, that means I'm either not all there mentally, which my wife would argue is most of the time, but I'm either I either
Wait,
miss
you said
something.
you are there mentally? I talk to you every day, and I sometimes wonder as to what's going on,
I said sometimes I'm there mentally, but so yeah, if I look at a trade, I go back and review it, and it's like, oh, I missed this. So I'm either off a little bit on the chart reads, then it's that gives me cause for concern. But if I take a wholly invalid trade, hang it up for the day, because there's something not right there, and I'm not going to sit there and try and diagnose what the problem is while still trying to read the market, because that's a recipe for just not a good situation.
I agree, and I've made this mention many times. Ben knows this. There was a day where I was driving into the office and I just wasn't feeling it. I hadn't even sat down at my computer yet, and I just wasn't feeling it. And I said, Ben, I'm not trading today. He says, why? I said, I don't know. I just don't feel it. It's like, okay. And to add to that, there was a couple of days where I was red. I took 2 losing trades. The first thing Ben says, shut it down. I'm like, Ben, I'm already 5 steps ahead of you. I'm done. It's done.
You beat me to it.
But that's the thing. So now that's just, Ben and I are constantly like pushing each other and encouraging each other and, beating each other up on mistakes that we made, and now those mistakes are far few in between now, because we're very disciplined in the things that we execute on. And that's kind of where we want to get you to be at that point as well. And that's the process. And if you don't take a single trade during that process, that's okay. Because the most important thing is what? Stick to the rules. And as long as you didn't break any rules, then that's a win. That's a huge
Mhm.
win.
Yeah. So
Mhm.
like I said earlier, I would look at today as a fantastic day. A total net win.
I agree. I totally
Mhm.
agree.
Flush all the any negative thoughts you had about today. Those just need to
Mm.
disappear. I know it's easy for me to say, right? Just have them just go away. But no, like I would look at today and honestly, like, took a great trade. I sat there. I didn't take any more trades because they didn't meet my conditions. Yeah, I would have liked to take more trades, but there's always more trades. I mean, every bar is an opportunity for another trade. So there's
Mhm.
always more trades. So today,
Mhm.
total net win and a good restart on the journey as day one, right? So and then tomorrow's gonna be day two. You
Mhm.
know, and you're starting this
Yeah.
journey really at a good time. You know, the holiday season is the market will be in full swing next week, right? We'll see regular volume levels next week. It's still kind of a little bit low this week, but like you're starting it at a really good time. So
Yeah, and the again, it's like Ben's always the one that kind of gets all the good stuff, and I'm always the one that throws in all the like the bad stuff, right? It's like good cop, bad cop kind of a thing. One of the things that I know for sure, Michelle, that you have learned and are learning is that if you make a mistake, you already know what the reward for that's going to be, especially if it's going to be coming from me. Because you know that if another chart shows up in a screenshot other than what you and I talked about, we're ripping the whole thing all over and we're building it from scratch all over again.
Mm.
And we're going to do whatever it takes to get that foundation solid. And this goes to everybody that's out there. Don't be afraid to do that. It's okay. I mean, it's Ben knows this. I've gone through this probably 2 or 3 times where I've literally had to go back to zero and I've built it up from scratch to start all over, building with what I've got, and then just stacking on top of that. And it's okay to do that. There's nothing wrong with doing that. It doesn't make you any less of a person. It's just gonna make you that much better of a trader on the other side.
Mhm.
100%, that's true.
I
Anything else?
understand. Nope. Today was an experience.
That's
A good
good.
one.
Good. Good. Fantastic. Okay. Ben, anything else you want to cover today?
No, I think that covers it. I know as we get into the next week, we'll start to see more trades. You know, there wasn't very much going on in the market today, so next week we should be able to get more trade review style, and you know, keep following up with Michelle and see how it goes. And this is as much helpful for me as it is, I hope, for you, Michelle. So, you know, when we talk about these rules, it's really just cementing them again for me. It's like, oh yeah, yep, that's a rule, you know, and it helps me, and I'm sure it helps Ron just as much as hopefully it's helping you. So
Absolutely.
appreciate you
Mm.
being here.
Absolutely. And
Mm.
again, I want to thank you as well, Michelle. Thank you so much. And I'm glad, and I know I'm sure I'm speaking for Ben as well, to be part of your journey. I think it's going to be great. And then we're going to have a huge old Apex party in the elite room when you get your when you get your account funded.
Thank you. All I can say is thank you. I'll be able to recite these rules. Anybody wants to know about rules, give me a year. I'll be rules. Rules, routine, discipline. I'll be
Yep,
there.
Fantastic.
for sure.
Fantastic.
So thank you so
You're
much.
very welcome. And with that, that'll close this session of the podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Don't forget to comment, hit a like, subscribe to the channel. Come join us in the Elite Room every weekday, Monday through Friday, between 9:30 and noon Eastern. And stay tuned for upcoming episodes with Michelle as we go through her forward progression and transformation, where she becomes a better trader than she was the day before. And thanks again for everybody joining us. Ben, as always, thank you so much. Appreciate everything that you
Thank
do.
you.
Appreciate everything you do for me. You help me immensely every single day, more than you know. And Michelle, thank you again for being such a great sport and putting yourself out there and allowing to be mentored and coached. It says a lot. It's not an easy thing to do. And that's it. And with that, we will see everybody next time, or we'll see you guys in the Elite Room tomorrow. Take care, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.